Famous Taiwanese author Qiong Yao dies at 86. Taiwan Ministry of Transportation clarifies zebra crossing rule. President Lai meets Guam governor, highlights regional cooperation. Real estate tycoon must pay $9 billion to avoid execution in Vietnam. U.S. announces new export controls on China's chip industry. Impeachment filed against Philippine VP after threat to president. Biden makes history as first U.S. president to visit Angola. Scientists gather to solve puzzle of the world's rarest whale.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funny News. It's Thursday, December 5th, and here are your top stories. And for today's Taiwan news, renowned Taiwanese author Qiong Yao was found dead at her home in Danshui, New Taipei City at 1:22 p.m. yesterday. Her son confirmed she left a suicide note. Emergency services arrived but confirmed her death without resuscitation. She was 86 years old. Taiwan's Minister of Transportation Chen Shikai clarified that the rule requiring buses to stop at zebra crossings applies only to commercial buses, not to all vehicles. The confusion arose after his inspection of a bus stop in Taichung, where some mistakenly believed it applied to all vehicles. President Lai of Taiwan, during a transit stop in Guam, met with Governor Luo Leong for a morning tea on December 5th. Lai emphasized the importance of closer ties between Taiwan and Guam in facing authoritarian threats and contributing to peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. And in global news, a court in Vietnam on Tuesday upheld a death sentence for real estate tycoon Choi My-lan after rejecting her appeal against a conviction for embezzlement and bribery in a high-profile $12 billion fraud case. Lan, the chairwoman of real estate developer Van Thing Phat Holdings Group, was sentenced to death in April for her role in Vietnam's biggest financial fraud case on record. The High People's Court in southern Ho Chi Minh City determined there was no basis to reduce Lan's sentence.
If Lan manages to return 3/4 of the embezzled money while on death row, her sentence could potentially be commuted to life imprisonment. She is one of the most prominent business executives and state officials jailed in the communist country's extensive anti-graft campaign, known as the Blazing Furnace. At the appeal hearing, the prosecution stated, "The consequences Lan caused are unprecedented in the history of litigation, and the amount of money embezzled is both unprecedentedly large and unrecoverable." State media quoted Lan's lawyer as saying she had several mitigating circumstances, including admitting guilt, showing remorse, and repaying part of the embezzled amount, but prosecutors argued that was insufficient.
The United States on Monday launched its third crackdown in 3 years on China's semiconductor industry, imposing export restrictions on 140 companies. The effort to curb Beijing's chip-making ambitions targets Chinese chip tool makers Biotech, ACM Research, and Cycarrier Technology. It also includes restrictions on shipments of advanced memory chips and additional chip-making tools to China. The move comes just weeks before the swearing-in of President-elect Donald Trump, who is expected to retain many of Biden's tough on China policies.
The move is one of the Biden administration's final large-scale efforts to stymie China's access to and production of chips that could advance artificial intelligence for military applications or otherwise threaten U.S. national security. The package includes restrictions on China-bound shipments of high-bandwidth memory chips, critical for high-end applications like AI training, new curbs on 24 additional chip-making tools and 3 software tools, and export restrictions on chip-making equipment manufactured in countries such as Singapore and Malaysia. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said the action aims to prevent China from advancing its domestic semiconductor manufacturing system, which it will use to support its military modernization.
An impeachment complaint was filed Monday against Philippine Vice President Sara Duterte, who is facing legal challenges over a death threat she allegedly made against the president. her involvement in extrajudicial killings of drug suspects, corruption, and failure to oppose Chinese aggression in the disputed South China Sea. The impeachment bid accuses her of violating the Constitution, betraying public trust, and committing other high crimes, including the alleged death threats against the president, his wife, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
The vice president's threats showed the extent of the respondent's mental incapacity, depravity, and lack of fitness to continue holding the high office of Vice President of the Philippines. These actions constitute not only a betrayal of public trust but also a high crime warranting her immediate impeachment. Duterte was also accused in the complaint of possessing unexplained wealth and allowing the continuation of extrajudicial killings of drug suspects initiated by her father when she held that position in the past. The vice president's legal troubles have unfolded against the backdrop of her increasingly bitter political feud with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and his allies.
President Joe Biden is making the first visit to Angola by a U.S. president, aiming to strengthen ties and promote American investments in the sub-Saharan nation. A key focus of his trip is the announcement of a 2.8 billion euro commitment to redevelop the Lobito Corridor Railway. The 1,300-kilometer railway connects Zambia, Congo, and Angola, and the upgrades aim to make it easier to transport raw materials across Africa and for export to global markets. The project has backing from the European Union, the G7, African banks, and a Western-led consortium.
The initiative reflects a shift in the U.S. approach to building relationships in Africa, which has traditionally focused on trade, security, and humanitarian aid. It is also seen as part of a broader effort to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative, which has invested heavily in infrastructure across Africa. Biden had promised to visit Africa last year after reviving the U.S.-Africa Summit in December 2022. However, the trip was delayed until this year and then postponed again in October due to Hurricane Milton, which reinforced the feeling among Africans that their continent remains a low priority for Washington. The last U.S. president to visit sub-Saharan Africa was Barack Obama in 2015.
It is the world's rarest whale, with only 7 of its kind ever spotted. Almost nothing is known about the enigmatic species, but on Monday, a small group of scientists and cultural experts in New Zealand gathered around a nearly perfectly preserved spade-toothed whale, hoping to decode decades of mystery. Van Helden has studied beaked whales for 35 years, but this was the first time he participated in a dissection of the spade-toothed variety. In fact, a careful study of the creature, which washed up dead on a New Zealand beach in July, is the first ever to take place. None has ever been seen alive at sea.
Over the next week, researchers studying the 5-meter-long male at an agricultural research center near Dunedin hope to find out. Only 6 other spade-toothed whales have ever been found, but all those discovered were buried before DNA testing could verify their identification. New Zealand is a whale stranding hotspot, with more than 5,000 episodes recorded since 1840. The first spade-toothed whale bones were found in 1872 on Pitt Island. Another discovery was made at an offshore island in the 1950s, and the bones of a third were found on Chile's Robinson Crusoe Island in 1986. DNA sequencing in 2002 proved that all 3 specimens were of the same species, and that it was distinct from other beaked whales.
The answer for yesterday was B, impose. The government decided to impose a heavy fine on companies that pollute the environment. Did you answer correctly? Now let's delve into the news of U.S. announces new export controls on China's chip industry. Number 1, crackdown. 严厉打击. The government launched a crackdown on illegal logging in the national parks. Number 2, restriction, 限制. Due to the pandemic, many countries have imposed travel restrictions to prevent the spread of the virus. Number 3, modernization, 现代化. The modernization of the country's infrastructure is essential for future economic growth. Next, we have a multiple choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comments section. The correct answer will be announced tomorrow. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune into Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I'll see you next time.